So today I want to talk about a few different draft prospects that I think could really take this Packers team to the next level. And when we look at the Packers coming into this year, I personally think the biggest need is edge rusher. And so in this video, I'm going to focus on who I think in the first round, if the Packers take an edge rusher, who I think they should target. And I want to take a look at all the different edge rushers that are projected right now to go in round one and sort of give some reasons for why I like certain guys and don't like other guys as much. I think that with any first round talent, they have a really good chance of being successful, but I think that there are a few different guys that I like better for the Packers. So I want to touch on those, and I'll also touch on the other players that are still great players, but I would prefer the Packers to draft these other guys. So we'll start off here with one guy that I think should be available when the Packers draft. And this is one guy that I think would be great in Jeff Hafley's defense, and that is Donavan Ezeiruaku. And he actually played college football at Boston College, where Jeff Hafley was the coach before he came to Green Bay. And so they already have experience together. And so you would assume that Hafley, has some more insight into Ezeiruaku compared to any other player coming to this draft. And when we look at Ezeiruaku, according to The Athletic's Dane Brugler, who has some great draft content, he has him ranked 30th in his rankings. PFF has him at 35th. So near the end of round one, and so with the Packers at 23, I think that he could be someone that's available at edge rusher. He had 14 sacks in 2024. He's 6'2", 247 pounds, so slightly smaller than a guy like Rashawn Gary or Lucas Van Ness, but he was very productive in college, an 18.2% pass rush win rate. And then here from Dane Brugler, who says, Ezeiruaku is more dip and rip than force player as a pass rusher because of his natural feel for depth points and the different ways he uses jab steps and cross chops to soften the corner. He ranked top 3 in the FBS this season in both sacks, 16.5, and tackles for loss, 20.5. He can be overwhelmed at times versus the run, but flashes the length to get into his opponent's pads, lock out, and stalemate the point of attack, especially on the move. And so the biggest reason for me really liking Ezeiruaku is he was incredibly productive this past year in college football. And I think when you look at the Packers pass rush, there's no doubt they need to have guys that are able to consistently get pressure on the quarterback. And when you look at his sacks and his pass rush win rate, that's something he was able to consistently do at Boston College. And watching, some of his, plays there in college, he's insanely explosive. He really just sort of jumps out when you're watching him play. And so that's someone that I think could be available, and someone I think based on his productivity in college could be someone that could really help this Packers defense. Now, another guy who I think could be available potentially, we'll see when the Packers draft, is Pearce Jr. from Tennessee. He's 6'4", 245, so a couple inches taller than Ezeiruaku, but about the same weight. And when it comes to weight for edge rushers, the Packers, typically they're slightly heavier, maybe closer to 270, but the Packers do have a couple guys who are closer to 250, like Brenton Cox, who's 6'4", 250, and he was actually the Packers' most productive pass rusher when it came to, pass rush win rate. So both of these guys, Ezeiruaku and Pearce Jr., are closer to the, 245, 247 range. But Pearce had a 23% pass rush win rate in 2024, so slightly higher than Ezeiruaku. He had less sacks overall, 8 sacks in 2024. He had 13 in 2023. And here's from Dane Brugler, who says, long and athletic, Pearce is able to convert his speed to power, and he rushes from a low position to forklift blockers using his extended levers. There are some question marks about his ability in the run game, but he chases with terrific effort to make stops near the sidelines. In several ways, Pearce reminds me of Will McDonald IV, who wasn't the most well-rounded prospect but had the juice to create pressure. Pearce's game will be valued at the next level. So my thinking when looking at these edge rushers, the Packers had a very solid run defense last year, but they were subpar when it came to consistently getting pressure on the quarterback. And so both of these guys are slightly smaller than, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness. That could hurt them when it comes to stopping the run. But I think right now the Packers really need to focus on finding a guy or guys who can consistently get that pressure on the quarterback. So that's why I really like both of these players, Ezeiruaku and Pearce Jr., and they could be around when the Packers draft at 23. Now, one other guy I'll mention that I think is more likely to not be available, but if he would be a home run pick for the Packers at edge rusher in the first round, is Mike Green from Marshall. PFF has him 11th. Dane Brugler has him 12th. So he's probably going to be gone by pick number 23. But he's 6'3", 251. He had 17 sacks in 2024, a 20.2% pass rush win rate. So very productive. And then here from Dane Brugler, too many people are hung up on Green's size instead of appreciating his edge speed, play violence, and the ways in which he impacts the game. He has serious juice as a pass rusher to bend, capture the corner, and finish at the quarterback. He might not have 35-inch arms to easily out-leverage blocks in the run game, but he plays with the pop to shock and separate, which allows him to impact the ball carrier. Green also led the FBS this season with 17 sacks. So all those guys are very similar in their weights. It's more similar to a guy like Micah Parsons than someone like, like a Myles Garrett type prospect, a little more explosive, a little quicker. I feel like when you're slightly less heavy, guys seem to be able to be slightly more explosive at times. So those are some very solid options for the Packers in round 1. And now I'll touch on a few other guys who are projected to go round 1 that I just don't think are quite as good fits, because in my mind, I'm looking for guys who were very productive when it came to rushing the passer. And so here, first we have Mykel Williams. He's 6'5", 265, so a little bit bigger. He wasn't quite as productive when it came to rushing the passer. 11.1% pass rush win rate, 5 sacks in 2024, 6 in 2023. Dane Brugler has him as 16th overall. PFF has him 22nd, so he may be there on the Packers pick. But as I said, not quite as productive rushing the passer. But here's what Brugler said about him. Consistent production was absent from his 2024 tape, but Williams battled through an ankle injury much of the year and flashed enough high-end plays to remind teams why he belongs in the first-round mix. He has length for days with the athletic body control and natural power teams will be willing to bet on, even if the nuance in his game isn't there yet. So he's still going to be a solid player. I just would rather go with guys who have been productive already at a higher level. And then we have one more guy, Shamar Stewart from A&M, 6'6", 290, so a much bigger player. Dane Brugler has him 9th overall, PFF 23rd. The thing with him, he only had 2 sacks in 2022. So separately, in 2022, he had 2 sacks. 2023, 2 sacks. 2024, 2 sacks. Only a 12.4% pass rush win rate. So when you see that, 3 straight years, only 2 sacks, sure, he has, the physical abilities, but I would like to have seen him be more productive in that way. Dane Brugler said Stewart explodes out of his stance and is capable of creating immediate knockback or winning high side with upfield burst/flexibility. He is the type of prospect who will test the traits over production slogan to which many NFL teams subscribe, as he never had more than 1.5 sacks in any of his 3 seasons. However, his tape shows a far more disruptive player than his numbers suggest. He led the Aggies in pressures, 39 in 2024. And so in my mind, I understand if you want to target a player because of his, his traits as opposed to his production. But for me, I'd rather find guys who have both and have already shown you that they can produce at a high level. So that's why I really like guys like Ezeiruaku, James Pearce Jr., and Mike Green. So those are my thoughts. If you want more Packers draft content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.